6 feet below the surface of any yard in America, the ground holds a temperature of exactly 55 degrees Fahrenheit. Every single day of the year. Every season. Every climate. Whether it is 105 degrees above your head in July or 12 degrees below zero in January, 6 feet down the earth does not move. It has not moved in recorded history. Right now, the average American household spends $3,400 every single year on food storage, refrigeration, and preservation. Over 20 years, that is $68,000 handed directly to an industry that has existed for less than a century. A single chest freezer costs $800 to buy, and another $150 every year just to run. The biblical methods in this video cost $7. Before the refrigeration industry existed, people fed armies. They survived 7-year famines. They crossed deserts carrying food that did not spoil. And they are paying you back $68,000 to ignore it. In 1946, the last major government-funded study on biblical-era food preservation techniques was quietly removed from the USDA's Agricultural Extension Program. Not banned, not disproven, just erased from every food safety manual written after 1955. The ancient Israelites perfected this. The Romans refined it. The Amish have practiced every single one of these methods without interruption for over 200 years. This video shows you the exact skills, the exact materials, and the exact reason this knowledge disappeared, and how to put all of it to work in a home you already own, this weekend, without a contractor, and without asking permission from anyone. In 1946, the United States Department of Agriculture commissioned the most comprehensive study of traditional food preservation ever attempted on American soil. Researchers traveled to Amish settlements in Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Indiana. They documented root cellaring systems, fermentation methods, honey preservation, smoke curing techniques, and underground grain storage that had been in continuous operation for over 200 years. The findings were remarkable. The food was safe. The methods were effective. The cost to replicate them was almost nothing. The study was never published, not classified, not disputed by a rival institution. The report was simply removed from the Extension Program's publication schedule in the spring of 1947 and never appeared again in any government agricultural manual printed after 1955. The lead researcher, a soil scientist named Harold Vance, spent 3 years trying to get the findings into print. By 1950, he had stopped trying. That same year, the commercial refrigeration industry reported its highest revenue quarter in recorded history. They didn't ban the old methods. They didn't fund research to disprove them. They just stopped mentioning them in every training program, every contractor certification, and every home economics curriculum written from that point forward. But the Amish never stopped. Walk into any Amish homestead in Lancaster County today, and you will find the same systems working exactly as they worked in the time of Joseph in Egypt. Root cellars maintaining food at a stable 55 degrees without a single moving part. Honey stores preserving fruit and herbs for years without refrigeration. Fermentation crocks producing living food that feeds a family through an entire winter on nothing but salt, water, and time. These are engineering solutions that predate the refrigeration industry by 3,000 years and outperform it in every category that matters when the grid goes down. The ancient Israelites understood something that took modern food science until 1987 to confirm in a peer-reviewed journal. Honey does not spoil. Not in a decade. Not in a century. Archaeologists working in the tombs of ancient Egypt have opened sealed jars of honey that were still perfectly edible after 3,000 years. The antimicrobial compounds in raw honey, hydrogen peroxide, methyl glyoxal, B-defensin-1, create an environment where no pathogen can survive. The ancient world knew this not because they had laboratories. They knew it because they paid attention. In 1959, NASA confirmed the same thermal physics the Persians had used to cool food storage chambers 2,000 years earlier. The Earth below the frost line holds a stable temperature regardless of surface conditions. That confirmation was published in an internal memo. It was never incorporated into any residential building code. It was never mentioned in any USDA food storage guideline. The cooling industry had by then spent 12 years building a $130 billion infrastructure that depended entirely on you not knowing that the ground beneath your feet was already doing the job for free. There is one variable that determines whether these methods work in your home or fail completely. We will come back to it. But first, understand what you are actually dealing with. These are not 25 random tips pulled from an old book. This is a complete, interlocking system of food security that kept entire civilizations alive without a single kilowatt of electricity, without a single dollar spent on refrigerant, and without ever depending on a supply chain that could be severed overnight. The Amish never abandoned it because they never needed to replace it. And by the end of this video, neither will you. It works like a natural refrigerator that someone buried in your backyard 3,000 years ago and never bothered to turn off. The principle is this: heat moves. It always moves from warmer to cooler. That is not a theory. That is the most reliable law in physics. And the Earth, 6 feet below your feet, is always cooler than the air above it in summer and always warmer than the air above it in winter. The ancient world did not need a textbook to understand this. They built their food storage around it and never lost a harvest to spoilage again. There are 3 things happening simultaneously every time one of these biblical preservation methods works. Understanding all 3 is what separates the people who build a system that lasts 20 years from the people who try it once and give up. The first is temperature stability. Not cold, stable. A modern refrigerator swings between 35 and 42 degrees every time you open the door. That fluctuation breaks down cell walls in vegetables, accelerates oxidation in fats, and shortens shelf life by up to 40% compared to food stored at a stable 55 degrees with no fluctuation at all. NASA confirmed this thermal principle in 1959 in a study on long-duration food storage for space missions. The Amish had confirmed it 200 years earlier by simply paying attention to what came out of the root cellar in March. The second is atmosphere control. Oxygen is the enemy of preserved food. Every ancient method in this video, honey packing, oil submersion, fermentation, smoke curing, underground storage, works in part because it displaces or eliminates oxygen from contact with the food. A fermentation crock does not just produce beneficial bacteria. It produces a carbon dioxide barrier that sits on top of the brine and prevents outside air from ever reaching the food below. The Israelites did not know what carbon dioxide was. They knew that the crock worked and the uncovered jar did not. The third is antimicrobial chemistry. Every single preservation method used in biblical times leverages a natural compound that kills or inhibits pathogen growth. Salt draws moisture out of bacterial cells and destroys them. Smoke deposits phenols and formaldehyde onto meat surfaces that no bacteria can survive. Honey produces hydrogen peroxide on contact with moisture and maintains a water activity level so low that microbial life cannot establish itself. Raw apple cider vinegar drops the pH of any environment it touches below the survival threshold of every common foodborne pathogen. These are not folk remedies. These are chemistry. The compounds work whether you believe in them or not. There is one variable that determines whether any of this works in your specific home. We said we would come back to it. Here it is. Humidity. Every single one of these methods has a humidity range inside which it performs perfectly and outside which it begins to fail. Root vegetables stored at 55 degrees in dry air will shrivel within 3 weeks. The same vegetables stored at 55 degrees at 85 to 95% relative humidity will last 8 months. Fermentation crocks exposed to dry air develop surface mold that contaminates the batch. Smoke-cured meat hung in a humid environment reabsorbs moisture and begins to spoil within days. Managing humidity is the one variable the 1977 Amish preservation guides did not explain in plain language. It is the reason most people who try these methods fail on the first attempt and never try again. We will show you exactly how to control it for less than $3 in materials when we get to the build section. The contrast in cost is worth stating plainly one more time before we get there. The average American spends $800 on a chest freezer, $150 per year to run it, and loses an average of $1,500 in spoiled food every single year due to power outages, freezer burn, and temperature fluctuation. Over 20 years, that is $68,000. The system you are about to build costs $7 in materials, has no moving parts, draws no electricity, and will outlast every appliance in your home by a factor of 10. The Amish have been proving that arithmetic correct for over 200 years. The refrigeration industry has been hoping you would never do the math. Here is what you need before you start. A shovel. A roll of 4-inch PVC pipe, minimum 100 feet, sloped at 1/4 inch per foot. A bag of PEA gravel, roughly 50 pounds, available at any hardware store for $4. A sheet of plywood, 3/4 of an inch thick. A box of coarse kosher salt, $2 at any grocery store. A 5-gallon food-grade bucket with a lid. And a cheap hygrometer, a humidity gauge, available online for $3. That is your entire materials list. Total cost, $9 to $14 depending on what you already have in your garage. Do not buy anything else. The contractor will tell you that you need a vapor barrier, a sump pump, and a professionally graded drainage system. Here is why he is wrong. Every one of those additions exists to solve problems created by poor site selection. We are going to select the site correctly and eliminate those problems before they start. Step 1 is site selection. Walk your property after a heavy rain and find the spot where water does not pool. That is your natural drainage point. That is where you dig. It sounds obvious. Most people skip it. That is why their root cellar floods in the first spring, and they abandon the whole project. The Amish call this reading the land. It takes 10 minutes and it costs nothing. Step 2 is the dig. You need a hole 6 feet deep, 4 feet wide, and 6 feet long. That is a morning's work with a standard shovel in average soil. If your soil is heavy clay, wet it the night before. The walls of your hole should be as vertical as you can make them. Sloped walls reduce your usable floor space and destabilize the structure over time. Line the bottom with 4 inches of pea gravel before you do anything else. This is your drainage layer. Do not skip it. Step 3 is the PVC ventilation run. This is the element that every DIY root cellar guide published after 1985 leaves out, and it is the reason most modern attempts fail within 2 years. You need 2 pipes, 1 intake, 1 exhaust. The intake pipe enters the cellar low, near the floor, on the north-facing wall. The exhaust pipe exits high, near the ceiling, on the south-facing wall. Cold air enters low. Warm, stale air exits high. The temperature differential does the work. No fan, no electricity, no moving parts. This is the same passive ventilation principle used in the grain storage chambers beneath the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. It works because warm air rises. It has always worked because warm air rises. Step 4 is the shelf structure. Use UNTR, hardwood only. Pine, oak, or cedar. Never use pressure-treated lumber inside a food storage space. The preservative compounds in treated wood off-gas into your food supply over time. The Amish have known this for 200 years. The lumber industry will not put it on the label. Space your shelves at least 4 inches from the wall on all sides. AIR needs to circulate behind every item on every shelf. Food pushed against a wall creates a dead air pocket that raises local humidity above safe levels and triggers mold within weeks. Step 5 is humidity management. This is the variable we told you about in the mechanism section. Here is the exact fix. Fill your 5-gallon bucket with coarse kosher salt and leave it open on the floor of the cellar. Salt is hygroscopic. It pulls excess moisture from the air passively and continuously. When the salt surface begins to look wet, spread it on a flat surface in the sun for an hour and return it to the bucket. It resets completely. One $2 bag of coarse salt will manage the humidity in a standard root cellar indefinitely. Hang your $3 hygrometer at shelf height. You want a reading between 85 and 95% for root vegetables, between 60 and 70% for cured meats and dried goods. If your reading climbs above 95, open your exhaust pipe damper. If it drops below 60, set a shallow pan of water on the floor near the intake pipe. Step 6 is food placement. Heavy root vegetables go on the floor or the lowest shelf. Potatoes, carrots, turnips, beets. They want the coolest, most humid air, which pools at the bottom. Cured meats and hard cheeses go on the highest shelves where the air is slightly warmer and drier. Preserved jars, honey stores, and oil-packed goods go on the middle shelves away from direct airflow. Never store apples and root vegetables in the same space. Apples produce ethylene gas as they ripen. Ethylene accelerates the aging process in every vegetable within range. Store apples in a separate section or a separate container with a loose lid. The Amish keep apples in their own dedicated corner, wrapped individually in newspaper. They have done it this way for over 200 years because it works. Step 7 is the door. Use a solid wood door, not hollow core. Insulate the interior face with 2 inches of rigid foam board cut to fit and glued in place. The door is your single largest source of temperature bleed. A poorly insulated door will raise your interior temperature by 8 to 12 degrees on a hot summer day and undo every benefit of a correctly dug and ventilated cellar. Seal the frame with weather stripping on all 4 sides. Check it every spring before the heat arrives. One common mistake finishes more root cellar projects than any other. People build the cellar correctly and then store food in it before the walls have fully dried. Fresh dug earth releases moisture for 4 to 6 weeks after excavation. If you load your shelves on day 1, that moisture spike will push your humidity above safe levels, trigger surface mold on everything, and convince you the system does not work. Wait 6 weeks. Run the ventilation. Let the walls stabilize. Then load your shelves. The Amish never rush a cellar. Neither should you. There is one modification the 1946 USDA study documented and then buried along with everything else. It was the last entry in Harold Vance's field notes from the Lancaster County settlements. He called it the secondary preservation envelope. The Amish simply call it doubling up, and it increases the effective shelf life of everything in your cellar by a factor of 2. Here is what it is. Every item going into long-term storage gets a second layer of preservation before it ever touches your shelf. Root vegetables are dipped in a thin slurry of raw beeswax and allowed to dry before storing. The wax seals the surface of the vegetable against oxygen and moisture loss simultaneously. A wax-coated carrot stored at 55 degrees Fahrenheit and 90% humidity will last 14 months. The same carrot uncoated will last 4. The beeswax costs $6 for a block that will coat an entire harvest. The refrigeration industry costs $68,000 over 20 years. That is the arithmetic they buried in 1947 and hoped you would never find. Cured meats get a second coat of rendered lard or tallow after smoking. The fat layer seals the smoke compounds against the surface and prevents the reabsorption of ambient moisture that causes spoilage in humid conditions. This is why Amish cured hams stored in Lancaster County cellars are still safe and edible at the 18-month mark. This is why the same cut of meat vacuum-sealed in a modern freezer begins to show freezer burn at month 3. Preserved jars get inverted for the first 24 hours after sealing. Gravity pulls the contents against the lid seal and confirms integrity before you commit the jar to long-term storage. If the lid flexes when you press the center after 24 hours, the seal has failed. Open it, use it immediately, and reseal a fresh batch. The Amish check every jar this way before it goes on the shelf. It takes 3 seconds per jar. Most people skip it. That is why they open a jar 8 months later and find it spoiled. This is why they buried it. Not because it was dangerous, not because it was wrong, because it works. Because a family that masters these 7 steps and this one final modification does not need a chest freezer, does not need a refrigerator repairman, does not need a utility company, and does not need to panic when the grid goes down tomorrow. They never asked anyone's permission to preserve their own food. Neither do you.